And we're live. Here
Oh
we
yeah,
are,
we're
the
alive.
20th of March, the
The
last the
Ides of
last official day of winter.
yeah, and we survived the Ides of March too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Didn't quite
well,
survive St. Patty's Day. I still think I still have a hangover.
we did. So welcome to our weekly session. He's Bob. I'm Tom. He's on the left coast. I'm on the west coast of Lake Huron, and here we are,
That's right.
faced with another week of head scratching, other
Well,
places scratching, wondering what is going on.
I think for the episode this week we've got how is Canada going to deal with the puppet? Because I think that's what we're in the middle of here. Uh, we've got. I think you brought up in the talks a couple of weeks ago that there's got to be some watershed moments that are coming for people to stand up and take notice. And I kind of think last week we said it, for you history buffs, start looking at what was going on in the late 1920s and early 1930s and tell me that you can draw a parallel. And we've got three federal by-elections coming up on the 9th of April, I believe it is. And of those, two are supposedly pretty safe Liberal seats, and the other one is a swing seat. It could be Bloc, it could be Liberal. If the NDP have their dreams of off of cannabis highs that they'll win it, then there's that possibility. The only thing I can tell you for sure is that the Conservatives would never get in there anyway. So it's kind of a moot point for that. But even if they get two of those seats, that puts them very close to being majority. And you think that we have had problems now? Yeah, here we have just announced, what was it, yesterday or the day before, the last possible day that they could file an appeal with the Supreme Court on the misuse of the Emergency Act. And here we go. They're going to have the Supreme Court make the decision if the Supreme Court chooses to hear it. And this could be another watershed moment here.
Well, the challenge to the lower courts in this case and the appeal court, so the federal court and the federal court of appeals, um, on this issue, which is entirely political. This is not a question of law or how it was misused. It's clear. That's why both the lower court, federal court, and the court of appeal said no. This is not a legal act on the part of the cabinet to do what they did. Now, there is a member of the court, as you know, who was very much involved in promoting this idea at the time in the lower courts. And this guy's now on the Supreme Court, curiously. And so, will he recluse himself, as you suggested, or not? I don't know. I don't know how you do that legally, because who would replace that member of the Supreme Court for that particular
Well,
case?
do they need him on there, right? As long as they have a majority.
No, but the evil of all this is if you permit this to even go forward. I hope I'm somehow thinking the courts will go, no, we're not. This is a bridge too far for even us to get in, because this is a political quagmire that the Supreme Court will get involved in, and that's a black swan event for this government. And I think that that I'm hoping that that doesn't happen. But imagine ruling in favor against their own court system.
Mhm.
You might as well throw up your hands and say the Canada is no longer governed by principles. It's no longer governed by any
Yeah.
kind of ethics on the part of the court system. And authoritarianism is now basically the system of the day. And if you think about how Germany went using these sorts of decisions through legal channels in the 30s to end up with a totally corrupted, evil, a bunch of bastards that created the deaths of hundreds of millions of at least
Their
millions
own
of people,
people and others,
their
yeah.
own piece. Yeah, this is the parallel is not that difficult to grasp because once you get on the slippery slope, it's dangerous. And
Yes.
today they were saying that there's Nick Nanos, the famous liberal pollster, came out that the Carney regime has got a 63% love rate among voters. This is how is it possible that the public wants their economy going down the toilet, wants to have unemployment at record levels, wants to have a failing housing market, wants to have inflation that they can't keep up with, wants to have an adversarial relationship with its only main customer
And,
in
we sit
commerce
back
and
and you're also
right.
thinking, what is it that we want? Like, here we have a government that is putting forward draconian legislation where they're going to be determining whether you can, yeah, can we even if this legislation, can you and I actually sit down and have this kind of a conversation? Because we might offend
That's
somebody.
who might
Um,
offense.
then they can decide that, well, Bob and Tom they're complete jerks, so we're just going to cut their internet access and that'll be it. We won't have it anymore. Um,
And then they'll send some cops to the front door and explain to us that somebody didn't like what we were talking about, so you better
well,
watch what country you use.
apparently that happened in somewhere in your neck of the woods, didn't
In Toronto. Toronto. This woman made some sort of commentary. Interesting. Seemed to have disappeared off the internet. But anyway, the day that it was out, for a day or two, she was not going to be bulldozed by these two constables. I use the term loosely because both of them need to get a haircut and a shave, frankly, because they look like bums coming to the door. But that's a whole other issue that rubs me the wrong way. The kind of slovenly look I see with law enforcement these days, because they have a right to look like bums in uniform. I'm sorry, that just takes me. Anyhow, point is, she filmed the whole thing. They didn't charge her with anything. Just I think it was
an intimidation
intimidation.
factor.
Now that's what those people in Germany did in the 30s. Some guy in a leather jacket showed up at your house at 3 in the morning. Intimidation. Okay, so sorry, this is a slippery slope, and then you have the dunce that masquerades around in this country as the Minister of Public Security, who baffle gabs his way through questions like, well, what is this law that you want to have passed in the Commons about what is acceptable speech? Well, what do you mean by who's what do you mean acceptable? And then you got the minister. Doesn't matter. The point is, even now I'm thinking, should I even name the minister here that's making these ridiculous comments?
Well, that's
Because,
true. Yeah. Yeah.
well, no, seriously, this really there's a cold wind blowing through here, where you go, well, wait a minute, should I even use this guy's name? Because it could be seen as, some kind of threat or whatever
Yeah.
to the legitimacy of the character who's sitting in the seat making up this crazy stuff. But we're these are dangerous times, but that we're
Yeah.
living in.
Well, as I say, if this election goes through and they even get two of the three seats, which I wouldn't even bet even money on it. Because it's almost a foregone conclusion. I would think that in the particular two ridings in Toronto, you could put a pig in a suit and throw some lipstick and rouge on it and put him on the Liberal candidate poster, and he would be voted in. We are a nation, I think, that has gotten shallower and shallower and shallower on our voting. Uh, we listen to what we want to listen to, and we form our opinions on what the opinions are told. I saw it on social media the other day, a person with a microphone going up and talking to one of the protesters. So, what are you protesting today? Well, we haven't found out yet what the authorized protests are, and haven't told us which one is going to take the priority. And that's almost the way we are in Canada when it comes to, well, we can't vote for Polyev because he's going to make us like Donald Trump in the United States, MAGA,
Oh, well,
or
well, that's the best they've got. This is TDS on steroids
oh, it
going
is,
after Polyev. Okay, and
yeah,
what's peculiar about this government, Bob, and this is the part that really gets me, is instead of defending their own actions and their own policies and proving to the great unwashed here that they're doing us a favor by being in office, all they do is attack the opposition. Well, you've got this backwards, and you've got millions of Canadians who buy into this tripe. You know,
well, it's also interesting too that the prime minister and several of his ministers were caught on a couple of issues. One was, is India interfering in our elections? And of course, the prime minister can't talk about that because he's privy to information that can't be repeated. And then we had another minister of defense, I believe it was, who said that we can't talk about the fact that we had the Canadians in the base in the Middle East who came under fire because it was privy information. But, that Polyev, he should get his security clearance so that he can be.
that canard. That's really stupid. Well, wait a minute. Today it was published by Blacklock that even the PMO's office had to say that the prime minister misled people about his meeting with Xi in China on the issue of did they have any interference in Canada with the election. Well, he never, man, lied. Don't talk, not misled. He lied. Okay,
Yeah,
he
and
got
human
caught.
rights violations too.
That's right, and that's right. His own people said, "Well, yeah, that's true. He probably misspoke or something. Give me a break. This guy is entirely, he's a puppet of various players. You brought that up in pre-production, and there's lots of smoke, and I don't think we're going to get down to finding out where the fire is until this regime is kicked out of office, and there's going to have to be some vengeance by the next government to find out how in the hell Canada got dragged down to this level
Well,
of incompetence, of unethical behavior, of utter corruption in so many fields that by any metric, the country is failing. And all they can come up with is Donald Trump or, the opposition is wrong. These guys are never wrong on anything. It's always
yeah.
somebody else's problem. And they go on about all these massive deals they're making. This tourist prime minister all over the globe. Now he's in Italy suntanning himself, but he wanders all over the place signing these meaningless MOUs that it basically just are meaningless. Yet,
Well,
if we had so much to sell, if we were so important to the rest of the world that wanted our stuff like he goes babbling on about it incessantly, why aren't those people here? Why aren't the leaders of industry, of government, beating a path to Ottawa and saying, Mr. Carney, we would like to buy your oil. We'd like to buy your aluminum. We'd like to buy your cars. We'd like to buy your water. I could go on for 20 minutes on this one,
well,
but they're
fair.
not coming. Okay. Nobody's coming
Well,
here.
that's true. And then on the other side of that, we had him go over and take $100 million of our pension funds to funnel it into guaranteed student loans for Indian nationals, not Canadian residents or permanent residents.
It makes me nauseous just to even
And
hear what you
then
say.
they turn around and they sign a $12 billion deal with the United States on an oil refinery. Yeah, it's just
Well, look,
I really don't know if this guy is in this for Canada or whether he's in it for BlackRock, because it seems to me that everywhere he goes, he is either following BlackRock or BlackRock follows him. And then there are plenty of ink deals that are coming in. And now they supposedly in a blind trust, but I can go to any newspaper I want and look up Brookfield Industries and find out what the stock share is. And, you know, a year ago when he signed on as being the prime minister, he knew that he had X number of shares. And even if you're not good in math like me, I can go up and fill up a calculator and do that to figure out how much I'm worth. And
Well, yeah, you're right. And some of the Brookfield deals he's been making actually have not been doing that well since this Iran thing started off, because it presupposed a lot of things that the black swan event of Iran has kind of screwed up for Brookfield. If you go on to the various financial websites that tell you that track stocks and whatever of various equity funds or whatever, you'll see that Brookfield took a hit big time since the oil jump in oil has taken place. Because what they were, I think, hoping for was more of the same that they were doing in equity purchases through energy stocks in Canada. The whole like the net zero stuff is what Brookfield went after. This screws it all up for them, because you can't run a war economy on solar panels and windmills. That's just not going to happen. So, this is unlikely to be wound up before 2 or 3 of our episodes in the future. I suspect that the Johnny come lately attitude of Canada on the Straits of Hormuz just the other day, the complete flip flopping of the Canadian foreign policy on getting involved in the Iranian
yeah,
yes. Okay. Uh, Apparently, until very recently, Canada really played lip service to the slaughter of Iranians by a theocratic bunch of nut jobs, because the rule of law, the international rule of law. He went on and on about this, and it means nothing to these people. Just like the rule of law in Ukraine and Russia. Well, it's okay if it's our side that's whacking the other side, but when we're getting whacked, well, the rule of law. Enough already, and that was so evident. Did you see the Joe Grogan interview with Polyev?
heard about
Bits
it.
of
I
it,
haven't watched the whole thing, no.
but okay, well, it's worth watching. But what's even more fun to watch is how the CBC is completely unhinged over the fact that this guy Polyev goes on the podcast of the number one guy in the U.S. He's got 14 million subscribers. I mean, we're talking serious money going there, and people are listening to this guy, who, by the way, is not always a friend of conservatives, because he calls a spade a spade. I guess it's much like us, because I don't have a whole lot of positive things to say when our side screws up, so to speak, because if you're going to be principled about things, you have to take the heat when your side screws up, and you have to bear it. But boy, oh boy, they're just out of their minds now over the fact that how dare this man who doesn't do a security clearance go to the United States, and he talked to the governor of Texas. Well, he's selling us out. And, this is just so stupid. Why didn't Mark go down and see the governor of Texas and start dealing with free trade? Because he doesn't want a damn pipeline anywhere, because that's not what's in his book of values, and it's not in the Brookfield policy guide. That's where we're at. So that's good fun. And by the way, totally another subject, because we like to flip around here real quick. The other day I was tuning into my local weather radio station here in Grandy Bendy, and there isn't one, because on the 16th of March, your government and mine decided that they're going to put an end to 127 radio stations that broadcast the weather on the weather radios, the network. The States, for American friends, is called NOAA. In Canada, it's called Weather Radio, brought to you by Environment and Climate Change Canada, they just turned it off. Right, with no, boom, just like that. So all of a sudden, if you're living in a place where there's no internet, but you need to find out, what the weather is, you can't anymore unless you listen to a radio station somewhere that might actually give it some attention between rock songs or whatever.
Yeah.
Because the actual weather radio service we had for marine, air, and basically people who are out in the woods, with just a handheld radio could get what tornado warnings and whatever.
Yeah.
All this is gone now. Okay, period. But without every no, it just happened. Like one day to the next, all of them are off the air, and you're going,
Well, you're
well,
right
and
about that. I think what that means, Tom, is that they realize that there is no money
no,
in
they're
the
broke.
bear.
They're
And
broke.
they're not realizing that they're putting people at risk.
They don't care.
And it also goes back to what you say, even if Mr. Polyev does become prime minister, he has a bureaucracy.
Oh,
And even with Mr. Harper, when he was prime minister, there was an awful lot of things that went on there that because they were all liberal appointees at the deputy level, the deputy minister level and down, that were all liberal appointees, that if they didn't like it, all they were going to do is just stonewall, baffle gab, make a committee until something changed, or they would just out and out say, "We're not doing that. We're doing this,"
yeah,
because there's no, I don't know, there's no retribution. They're, you know, it would take a long time to fire these people, more than what the 4 years you would get on a majority government. So, um, and then on top of that, even if it did pass and in order to become law, it has to go through the Senate here. Well, 3/4 of the Senate are all liberal appointees, right?
sinecures.
Are they gonna vote with the government? Are they gonna vote with, we're not voting for you because you're
They're voting for
conservative?
their next paycheck. What are you talking about?
Well,
Oh, if these people are the sober second chamber, these people are all, they're sober all right when they're not on the bottle or something. Because as long as they get their check, there's nothing to be sober about. Okay, that is that if I was in a position to do so, the Senate would be gone tomorrow. That's a complete waste of our time and money. Uh, but we digress. It's true. I think that they are broke. And if you talk to, and I have been talking to some people, because tax time, and people who are owing money are getting a lot of grief from the CRA to come up with the dough to pay their back arrears in taxes. These two people I know of who are under pressure to do that. And that means that the word must be out to the bureaucracy. You better find dough for us, because one of the things they said they were going to do, they're going to reduce the size of CRA, and they're not doing that. You know why? They need those people to get as much money out of the taxpayers as they can, and they
yeah,
also know that total fiasco during the pandemic, where they gave billions away, that money is long gone. Or some of the people who took the money probably aren't even in the country. You try
yeah,
finding those folks to pay back
yeah,
that dough.
yeah.
Okay, so when you have, I forget what the how many $1 trillion mark is passed now on our deficit. Like, you got to pay this back. Okay, you can't pay it back.
Well,
Okay, it
somebody
hasn't
did the
cost.
math on that, Tom, and they said that is costing every Canadian, and this is like somebody who's born today, within the last hour, within the last 2 minutes, it's costing $1,700 a second.
And take
So,
away the 3.5 million people that shouldn't even be here who aren't putting any money into the kitty to begin with.
yeah.
Oh no, it's outrageous. There's something else that, just to tell you, or not to tell you, but to illustrate to you how embedded this lunatic stuff has become. I'm going to show you something. It just occurred to me. See, this is what happens when you do live stuff. Hang on. Today, I picked up the newest edition, the first edition of the local newspaper here. Okay, it's called the Exeter Examiner, which is something that hasn't been around in our community here for a couple of years because nobody reads newspapers anymore. There's just no money in it, right? So, buddy who owns this publishing company decided he was going to resurrect the newspaper, and it's not bad. It's local stuff, the hockey teams, and what the town council is doing and not doing, as the case may be. And it's basically paid for by the ads, that the local merchants put into this paper to cover the cost. So on page 31, for anybody in my neck of the woods who needs this, there is an ad from the local hamburger joint called Mickey D's or McDonald's, the parlance of business. So this particular ad, it's difficult to show, but it's an ad that's 1/4 page of the magazine, the newspaper. The ad is called "Overheard at McCafe," brought to you by McDonald's, and it gives the address of the two stores of McDonald's, and one of them says about this newspaper. Now I know why they kept the Exeter Examiner sign up on Huron Street for 10 years. Ha 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 ha. And the other one, this is an ad for a hamburger joint. It says FIFA really dropped the ball in giving Trump their peace prize. Okay. And then they go on. Have you heard something humorous around town that you think might be of interest to others? Email it to us and then give the email address. You can see that this is really deep now. It's one thing to say, talk, joking about they resurrected this newspaper. That makes sense. But they had to put this thing that FIFA really dropped the ball in giving Trump their peace prize. So you can see that the TDS is really deep here. It goes right into the owner of the McDonald's in town here, who wants to provide that he's virtue signaling that he's really a good local guy. He figured this out with FIFA and that the whole Trump thing. Holy mackerel! This is amazing. Just
Yeah.
how deep this has gone.
Well, I
I,
will
I,
challenge that, Tom, to say it's put out by the ads that are in the paper. But I wonder if you follow the money trail even further, whether you would find that their tentacles are actually dipping into the Canada Media Fund that the government set up.
well, I tried. Interesting. You should bring that up because in the masthead of this paper, it makes no reference to any money from from the government at any level. So this real, for all intents and purposes, the publisher of this little community newspaper, which is a bi-weekly thing that we've just started after a hiatus of 2 years, because basically these things don't make money anymore. He's brought it back, and good on him. And he has no control, I guess he does, but as far as he's concerned, he sells ads to pay for the paper and printing and the staff and what have you. But why would a hamburger chain decide that that's going to be part of their ethos? Because it reflects something it's weird here. You know,
Well,
the other thing that it brings to the fore for me is I don't see any version of that has ever challenged the last 11 years of the current liberal government. I have never seen anything like it. There's never a challenge to what these guys are doing by
well, no,
media at any level. So when you see a society that thinks this is okay, the authoritarian shift over the last decade or so, and then it manifests itself in weird ways like this. Like I don't care what the guy who's putting in the hamburger ad says, but it just reflects something that's not right.
yeah,
You should be selling your hamburger here, for what it's worth. not some political agenda that you think is really cutesy at the time.
Well, and that brings us right almost full circle to where we started off about a half hour ago. Why are people putting up with this nonsense on all levels, be it housing, be it taxation, be it the fact that out here on the West Coast, I am paying $2.15 a liter for gasoline that was manufactured and made 4 months ago, well before the Iranian conflict started.
Oh, absolutely.
Why are we putting up with this? And how is it that if all is, well, I guess we're believing all this shit, oh, all this crap that is going on in the country through the various bought off medias, that everything is warm and kind and wonderful, and that's why the exalted leader is sitting at 66 to 67% popularity. Like you know,
Well, look,
you can't fix stupid. I'm sorry.
no, you can't fix stupid. There's no cure for stupid, and it's evident to me that this we're we're either a tiny minority, Bob, who question stuff, and the rest of the of our friends and neighbors and fellow citizens have been brainwashed. Well, we might as well be in North Korea, because everybody claps like seals when this Bud shows up in Parliament. When's the last time you saw parliamentarians clap like seals when the head of the party wanders in? Each and every time, it's getting to be
Well,
silly.
I think out of fairness to the people in the House is that if the Prime Minister actually does bother showing up in there, it is kind of a momentous occasion. So it's well worth, an ovation of some sort.
Yeah. Well, it's so easy to pick on this guy because he's certainly not as that orange man called that fool that runs the UK. He's not Churchill. Our guy ain't Churchill either. He's certainly not Laurier. He's certainly not Trudeau, the first. He's certainly not Pearson. So far, I've only picked liberals. I won't even pick a conservative PM because there's very few of them in history by and large. But he's not any of those people,
Yeah.
and I think that probably people like Pierre Trudeau and Wilfrid Laurier and Mike Pearson are probably rolling around in the graves thinking, "What happened to the Liberal Party?" Because that's not the Liberal
Well,
Party.
I'd agree with you, except I think I'd take out Pierre Trudeau. I think that man was a bit evil incarnate as well. And all you have to do is look at this Charter of Rights and Freedom. He didn't know what it would. I think that as a load of hooey because he knew exactly where he was going with that.
Yeah, but he did have charisma. I mean, this guy has no charisma. This guy is
No,
made up.
no,
Hey,
no.
this is you called him a puppet or marionette or whatever. This guy is not he's not warm and fuzzy. People don't go out in the street. Gee, I got to see this guy. No, no. He never talks to you and me. He always talks about, the population is for some sort of an inanimate object out there that, needs to be massaged or something. I don't get it.
I guess. Yeah. Well,
Okay,
it
I
goes back
wasn't I
to,
wasn't giving I wasn't giving your guy a compliment there. Trudeau won because I think he was probably the first of the list of characters that wanted to dismantle the country, even though he dressed it up as the opposite.
Mhm.
He was not a patriot in the sense of, oh, I have a pan-Canadian vision. That's just not true. He was a socialist through and through. He was very much the kind of guy that thought and Fidel Castro was the perfect kind of guy for Canada.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well,
And
I guess
it
to
was
our
good for Quebec.
viewers, we could equate our current guy as being the real life version of the Peter Principle. I think he's probably about 4 levels above where he should be.
Oh, absolutely. No, he's definitely a puppet
Puppet.
of and you know, to be fair, I you know, you can't call him stupid, you can't call him inarticulate, all those things, you know. But as as someone who exists in a technocratic, bureaucratic bubble, uh, he's perfect. But what if you're looking for gravitas, personality, originality? I would even go so far as uh, professional integrity, because you know there's a kind of a problem I have with when you say one thing but do something else, right? There's something wrong here. The flip-flopping over the Iran thing, right? Iran thing is completely in keeping with a bureaucrat who doesn't make policy but follows policy, but he didn't make the policy. He's being buffeted about by the winds of change geopolitically. He doesn't really grasp what he has to do. So he's got the numbskulls around him who are running defense. I mean, one of the dumbest things he said recently when they asked him why the event of the bombing of the base in the Middle East where Canadians were there, why didn't he say anything about it? And he said, "Well, there are other people who run the show on my behalf." The hell are you talking about? You know, you didn't know. You aren't even you don't even care, okay? Because
Yeah.
you are a bureaucrat who was told what to say and make sure whatever you say, you know, is within the boundaries of the policies made up by the guys that actually have, you know, forward-thinking grasp of things. Bureaucrats, by and large, are never like that. A good bureaucrat doesn't question what they do; they just go and do what they're told to do.
Yeah.
Lousy bureaucrats are the ones
Yeah.
that get kicked out after a while because they get too big for the britches and start calling out things like, no, no, that's illegal, or no, no, that's
Well, I guess it goes to, and I don't know whether it was on a news feed today or through social media today, where the commissioner of the RCMP came out and basically said that there was no political interference any longer from India, um, which I think kind of contradicts what the intelligence sector said, CSIS. Now, mind you, CSIS is operating at half of what the CBC gets, so maybe their information isn't quite up to date. I mean, maybe I don't know, but
all right. Well, you know, we could go on for another hour, but I think you know this would
well, I know
we,
you said it. You
we
said
might.
it before, Tom. We are preaching to the converted, and I think that's just you and me. I don't know how many comments we're getting or not getting on our stuff, whether we're getting any replies back.
Well,
But
we're
I
doing
guess
the best we can to educate people or give them an alternative, what do you call it, view of things. Like I said, maybe Nick Nanos is right. Maybe we're tiny. Maybe we make up 30% of the thinkers in this country, and the other 70% run the roost.
well, I know I've been out for uh, various outings to people around my age. And I have yet to find anybody that thinks that the current government is doing good, but
I'm in
maybe
the
that's
same
just
boat.
limited by,
No, listen, I live in a fairly weirdly. This is by and large a blue area. For the Americans, it would be red. This is blue. But uh, there's enough liberal, so to speak, or NDPers here that I know, and you know they're not all happy. So there's not. That's why I take no. What's the word? I don't believe that Nanos poll for a minute. I think it's completely as concocted as the CBC is, and bought off as the CTV and Global is on the legacy media side. The only place in Canada where you're likely to get any kind of pushback is some AM radio stations might do it, but they're nothing like Canada does not have a real conservative legacy outfit. You know, the National Post plays around with it a little bit, but that's really not it. A couple of radio stations have particular guys or gals that talk about certainly the internet, folks like Jasmine Lane and what have you, and folks like them are the fringe. And these people are out there, and they have pretty good followers. But unless you are really someone who follows YouTube or whatever, you have no clue, and
Yeah,
that's what it's about. So until and someone will probably write to us and say, "What about Rebel News?" And I'm going to say that Rebel News is not really what I consider the kind of complementary journalism that's done by what I would expect to challenge the CBC or CTV. It's too one-dimensional in many ways. It's bless their tiny pointed heads for doing what they do, but you need to be on a serious bandwidth like TV or cable or whatever to challenge. So at the end of the day, we have no Fox News in Canada. Period. It just doesn't exist, or Newsweek or Newsmax or whatever the hell it's called. We we talk about having a society that's 50-50 supposedly between the left and the right. I don't buy that for a minute because there's no way for me to gauge that. It certainly
yeah,
isn't gaugeable in politics, and it's not gaugeable in the media. So I think we really are in a minority, and when this thing runs its course, sadly, uh, we may discover that we may have been right, but it didn't help.
yeah. Well, kind of my final point on this is that in the late part of what was it 1980s when we had a guy by the name of Brian Mulroney running the place,
Mhm.
and his out and out um, political dealings, stench, potential corruption, uh, had their bottoms handed to them on a platter in
Yep.
a federal election. They came back with three
Legitimately.
seats, three
Yes.
seats.
Yes. Yes.
And to me, there was
And they deserved
nothing,
it. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
and there's nothing that that particular government do that this particular government over the last 10 years hasn't done.
Oh, it's a mirror image. Same. It's a repeat. It's like the Back to the Future Part Two.
That's very true. But why was it okay to um, hand the conservatives their butts? But it is never, ever thought about to do the same with the liberals. Yeah.
Well, sorry, not in our time. You're right. I don't. Well, and maybe we're wrong. Maybe there is an undercurrent here we're not paying attention to. But when you see some of the shenanigans that are going on in your neck of the woods with your premier, you have to really scratch your head and wonder what is what's the end game here? Like, what's the mission?
Well, I don't know if you saw it or not, but we've been downgraded again on our bond rating.
Yeah, saw that.
So, you know, uh, they're politicians, I guess. And as much as that used to be an honorable profession, it is now probably about 6 layers below the pond scum.
Well, with very few exceptions, without naming names, they're not patriots. They're basically professional carpetbaggers and using politics as a way to uh, stay well fixed financially,
Mhm.
to wield power with whatever means possible. It's really sad. And frankly, it's no better in many ways than our pals to the south, but they have tools which they can deal with, which we don't. We're kind of at a loss here because we have a system that's become dysfunctional over basically the last 50, 60 years. There was always talk of fixing our political system at the federal level. And every time someone even dared to come near it, they backed off real quick because they knew what that meant to the Laurentian elites. They would be out of business. You cannot change the system here without putting the people in charge out of business.
Well, that's right. I mean, we had that 11 years ago when we had Trudeau 2 come in and last past the post was that this is the last past the post election that we'll ever
He
have.
lied his ass off. Absolutely.
Oh, well, yeah, yeah. He lied. Well, he's a politician, and we've learned to come to expect that, I guess. But
Well, he was worse than a politician. He was a charlatan. Okay, because I
yeah,
always thought he was the worst prime minister on record. I have to fix that that standing, because the worst one is what we got right now. And this one's smarter than the other one was, and far more malevolent. The other one was just stupid, and after he blew his majority uh, first time, right? He skipped by with two minority governments. This guy is much clever, although he's one dimensional. He's like a bureaucrat, technocrat, but I think more malevolent in that case than Trudeau ever was. Trudeau was just, I mean, there's no other way to describe it. He was a virtue signaling twit. This guy, you have to respect him for not him, but who's behind him, who's pulling the strings, and they are as they're far more malevolent than he is in making sure that things work out the way they want it, which is why they cancel stuff without ever telling you, like the radio thing, just like that. Why you're spending billions of dollars that should be debated in Parliament before you go around pissing away that kind of money. That's driven us into the ditch. Like I said, we used to be number one in the year 2000 on the UN Index of Human Development. We're number 16 now. We slid down after a quarter of a century. This is unacceptable, but apparently okay to the masses that believe the rubbish that comes out of the heads of these people.
well, apparently too, though, one poll, I don't know which one it is that we are now behind the United States on the happiness poll.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know how that's going to sit with all the elbows up crowd, but
Elbows up crowd. I'm not even sure what the number of those people is, because as they start dying out one way or the other, it's questionable whether this pattern of decline is accelerating. When you're paying 215 for gas out there, and we're at 169 here at the moment, which has nothing to do, as we spoke earlier, with the stuff that was put through the pipeline months ago and in the tanks of the gas station. This is going to have a knock-on effect pretty quick. And those people who are living on the fat of the land and virtue signaling for free, they may come to regret this, because you know this thing in Iran is not going to end in a couple of weeks, as we said earlier. This is going to go on for a while, but the knock-on effect, particularly of the unprepared, because this country is unprepared. Okay, no question. We do not have resilience built into this country at the moment to deal with what could be coming down the pike economically, socially. Uh, uh, this is tough. We got a housing crisis. We have a poverty crisis. We got food banks that are emptying out every week. And you've got a guy prancing around in Italy telling everybody that Canada's the most efficient and leader in the G7. And you're going, this sounds like Baghdad Bob during the Iraq War, was standing up in front of CNN saying that the Iraqis are beating the hell out of the Americans. Meanwhile, American tanks are going behind them at full tilt. So, Baghdad Bob and Corny Carney are the same in my view. Yeah, just feed them more of this bovine excrement and let them sniff it, and they'll think everything's just hunky dory.
well, and just my final point. I said that a while ago, but this is really my final point.
This is really your final point. Okay.
So, what happens when our immigration minister is reserving seats on the selection board for immigrants to come to Canada who have a military background and want to join Canada's military, who just happen to be Iran national Iran guard, and we have to go to war. Who would they? Who would they?
Well, yeah. Apparently, there's 700 or so IGRCs or
Yeah,
IRGs. Yeah, in the country, well, they could qualify right away because
Yeah,
this is an
apparently.
authoritarian leading outfit. They came from an authoritarian outfit for
But I
for
guess,
sure.
I guess that's kind of what would happen now that they're drafted into the army and we have to go and put boots on the ground. Could we send them back because they filed a refugee claim to say they couldn't go back? And you wonder, come on, folks. I think it's time to stop smoking weed and get back to the serious life here. We are in deep, deep
Deep,
doo-doo.
deep doo is right. Yep. But on that happy
Don't
note,
forget to hit the like button.
yeah, hit the like button. Don't forget to, if you're on Rumble, tip us because we want to get some more technology in our broadcast here to make this thing snappier. Because when you look at the other guys talking, they got stuff that moves and they have videos that come down. On the other hand, yeah, maybe this is the maybe this is just the straight unvarnished stuff you like better. Anyway, I'll see you next week, Bob.
Yep.
Take care out there, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of stuff to talk about next week.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have some comments from people.
Sure.
As long as it's not those guys at 3 o'clock in the morning.